The auction hall was enormous, stretching high into the sky with glass walls that shimmered under the bright lights. Creatures of every shape and size moved around on platforms, their colors dazzling, their scales shining. Some had wings like mirrors, some had horns that twisted like silver vines, and some had eyes that seemed to look straight into your soul. It was a place where the rarest and most valuable beings from distant galaxies were bought and sold. Every creature there was desired by someone, usually the wealthiest and most powerful aliens in the universe. But one little dragon stood quietly at the edge of the hall, its scales dull, its wings small and trembling. The other creatures seemed proud and powerful, standing tall and strong as buyers inspected them. But this little dragon, almost no bigger than a large dog, didn't have that same aura. Its tail flicked nervously, and it hissed softly when someone came too close. The auctioneers, who were used to only showing the strongest and most valuable creatures, glanced at it with surprise and then quickly shook their heads. "This one is weak," one of them muttered. "No one will pay for it." Buyers passed by, looking at the little dragon with barely concealed disdain. Wealthy aliens whispered to each other, laughing softly. "What a pitiful creature," one said, snorting. "I can't believe it's even here." Another shook its head, adding, "It doesn't have power. No fire. No strength. Nothing." They were all looking for something extraordinary, something that could fight, protect, or impress. This little dragon didn't seem to have any of that. Amid the crowd, a young human girl stood quietly. She was small compared to the towering aliens around her, with curious eyes and a calm face. She didn't understand all the fancy words or the complicated ways aliens valued creatures, but she understood one thing clearly. This little dragon needed someone who would care. Something about its trembling wings and cautious eyes pulled at her heart. She could see fear and loneliness hiding behind the small, scaly face, and she felt a strong need to help. The auctioneer raised his claw and called for the first bids. "This weakling has no value, but let us see if anyone dares to purchase it," he said, his voice echoing through the hall. The little dragon flinched, shrinking slightly back. The crowd laughed. "It's useless," one alien shouted. "Why waste your money on something like that?" But the girl took a deep breath. She didn't care what the others thought. She stepped forward, her small hand reaching into her bag to check her savings. Buying a dragon wasn't cheap, even a weak one, but she had been saving for this moment for a long time. She knew it would be worth it if she could help this little creature grow. The auctioneer's eyes narrowed as he noticed her. "A human? You wish to buy this?" he asked, almost in disbelief. "Do you even understand what you are bidding for? It has no strength, no value, and certainly no future." "I understand more than you think," the girl said quietly, her voice steady. She looked at the dragon, who now peeked at her from the corner of the platform. Its eyes were wide, uncertain, but they didn't look afraid anymore. There was a spark of hope there, tiny but real. "I want it," she added. The crowd erupted in laughter. The wealthy aliens whispered and shook their heads. "A human buying that weak thing?" One murmured, "They will regret it." Another said, "Why waste resources on a creature that cannot even defend itself?" The auctioneer hesitated for a moment, clearly unsure. It was unusual for a human to buy a dragon, let alone one considered worthless. But the rules were the rules. He tapped a claw on his podium. "Very well. Place your bid," he said. The girl reached into her bag and carefully counted her savings. Every coin, every note she had saved over months, was placed on the table. She wasn't the highest bidder the dragon had ever seen, but she didn't need to be. No one else had even dared to bid. The auctioneer looked at the coins, then at the girl, then back at the trembling dragon. He hesitated before finally nodding. "It is yours," he declared. The crowd murmured in surprise. Some were shocked that a human had the courage or foolishness to buy such a weak creature. Others just shook their heads, thinking the little girl had made a terrible mistake. The dragon, for its part, didn't understand exactly what was happening. It just felt a strange warmth from the girl's presence. She didn't reach for it with harsh claws or loud commands. She didn't yell or push. She only smiled gently, and that smile made the dragon's small heart beat faster. The girl stepped forward and held out her hand. "It's okay," she said softly. "I'm not going to hurt you." The dragon took a cautious step forward, then another, until it was close enough to sniff her fingers. Its tiny wings twitched nervously, but it didn't back away. For the first time in its life, it felt like someone might actually care for it. Not carrying the dragon carefully, the girl left the auction hall. She didn't notice the whispers behind her, the alien nobles who laughed and shook their heads, or the auctioneer who muttered about foolish humans. She only noticed the little dragon's eyes, now following her with trust and curiosity. That night, in the quiet of her small room, she placed the dragon gently on the floor. It looked around nervously, its tail flicking back and forth. She gave it some water and a small piece of food she had prepared. The dragon sniffed, then took a tiny bite, its eyes widening in surprise at the taste. The girl chuckled softly. "You'll need to eat well if you're going to grow strong," she said. For hours, she simply watched it, and the dragon watched her. There was no magic, no fireworks, just two beings learning that they could trust each other. Outside, the city lights flickered, the sounds of the alien world humbling around them. Inside, there was warmth, safety, and the beginning of something extraordinary. The little dragon, once rejected and laughed at, began to feel a flicker of hope it had never known before. And the girl, small and human among the powerful aliens, felt a quiet pride in knowing that she had given something precious a chance to be seen, to be loved, to be more than what others said it could be. By the next morning, the dragon had grown more comfortable, exploring the corners of her room with cautious curiosity. It tried flapping its wings, small gusts of air lifting dust in the corners. The girl laughed and clapped her hands. "You can do it. I know you can," she said. For the first time, the dragon felt like it had a purpose beyond being a rejected creature in an alien world. The auction hall, the mocking aliens, and the dismissive whispers faded in importance. All that mattered was the bond forming between the girl and the little dragon. She knew that others might never understand why she chose it, but she didn't care. What mattered was that this dragon, once considered weak and useless, now had someone who believed in it completely. And that belief, she knew, could change everything. As night fell, the dragon curled up beside her, its small body radiating warmth. The girl stroked its scales gently and whispered, "We'll grow together. We'll show them what you can really do." The dragon, for the first time, felt something it had never felt before: hope. It closed its eyes, trusting her completely, knowing that this human had given it a life full of possibilities. And so, the little dragon, once unwanted and rejected, began a new life, one where it would learn, grow, and discover powers it never imagined. And the girl, who had seen beyond appearances and value, knew that this was only the beginning of their incredible journey together. After leaving the bustling auction hall behind, the girl carried the little dragon through the quiet streets of the city. The alien world outside was still alive with lights, strange sounds, and creatures moving about. But inside her small quarters, there would be peace. She carefully placed the dragon on the soft mats she had laid out for it, making sure it felt safe and comfortable. The dragon looked around nervously at first. Everything in the room was strange, the shapes of furniture, the smells, even the girl herself. But unlike the aliens at the auction, she didn't rush it. She simply sat on the floor and watched. Her presence was calm and steady, and it made the little dragon curious. Slowly, it crept closer, sniffing the air, testing the space, unsure whether it was truly safe. "Don't worry," the girl whispered, her voice gentle. "You're not alone anymore." She reached out a hand, not to touch it immediately, but just to let it know she was near. The dragon's small head tilted, and for the first time, it seemed to consider the idea. Its wings twitched nervously, and a faint glow appeared along its dull scales. The girl noticed this and smiled. "You're stronger than they think," she said softly. "You just need time." She brought out a small bowl of water and set it on the floor. The dragon stepped forward slowly, sniffing it, then dipped its tiny snout in and drank. It was a small act, but it meant the dragon was beginning to trust her. Then she offered a bit of food, carefully cutting it into tiny pieces. The dragon hesitated, then took a small bite. Its eyes widened with surprise, and it quickly ate the rest. The girl clapped softly, laughing. "See? You're learning. You just need someone to help you." For hours, she didn't push it to do anything. She simply stayed near, talking quietly about small things, the streets outside, the sky above, and how she hoped one day they could explore beyond the city. The dragon listened in its own way, tilting its head or flicking its tail, and the girl imagined it understood more than it could say. Slowly, it started moving around the room, testing the space, flapping its tiny wings. The girl's heart lifted every time it did dot by the next morning. The dragon was more confident. It hopped onto a small table, then back to the floor, flapping its wings a little more each time. The girl cheered softly. "Good. You're brave. That's it. Keep trying." She had prepared a little obstacle course of pillows, mats, and small furniture to encourage the dragon to move, jump, and learn. It was slow work, but each step counted. She noticed something special about the dragon. While it seemed weak to outsiders, it was clever and curious. It studied her actions closely, remembering every small gesture, every sound, every pattern of movement. When she reached for something or placed an object in a certain way, the dragon began to anticipate what she would do next. The girl's eyes sparkled with realization. "You're learning fast," she whispered. "You just need to understand what you can do." As days passed, their bond grew stronger. The dragon no longer flinched when she approached. It began to respond to her voice, turning its head or moving closer when she called. She began teaching it small tricks, like hopping over objects, picking up small items with its claws, or nudging things with its nose. The dragon wasn't the strongest, but it was intelligent, and it seemed to enjoy learning. One afternoon, as the girl showed the dragon how to push a small ball across the floor, it suddenly did something unexpected. Instead of nudging it with its nose, it blew a tiny burst of fire from its mouth, just enough to roll the ball across the room. The girl's eyes widened in surprise, and the dragon looked at her as if waiting for her reaction. "That's amazing," she said, clapping her hands. "You have abilities I didn't even know about." The dragon tilted its head, a flicker of pride in its small eyes. It was the first sign that it had powers of its own, hidden beneath the appearance of weakness. The girl realized that strength wasn't just about size or force. It was also about cleverness, adaptability, and heart. And this dragon had all of that in its own way. That evening, she set out a little corner for it to sleep. She wrapped it gently in soft cloth, careful not to restrict its wings. The dragon settled close to her, curling up against her side. For a long time, they simply stayed like that, quiet and warm, listening to the distant sounds of the alien city. It was a simple moment, but it was full of trust, comfort, and understanding. Over the next week, she continued to care for it, feeding it, cleaning its small claws, and encouraging it to flap its wings more. The dragon began trying small flights across the room, sometimes crashing into walls or mats, but always getting back up. Each attempt made the girl cheer, and each success, no matter how small, filled both of them with joy. During this time, the girl began to notice subtle changes. The dragon's scales shimmered faintly in the light. Its eyes, once dull and fearful, now sparkled with curiosity and intelligence. It moved with more confidence, even attempting to imitate some of the small gestures she made. When she clapped her hands, it learned to respond with a little hop or a tiny wag of its tail. The girl realized that what the auction had called weakness was not weakness at all. The dragon had been misunderstood, underestimated, and mistreated. It wasn't lacking strength. It was lacking care, guidance, and someone who believed in it. And now, with patience, attention, and kindness, it was beginning to show who it truly was. One morning, as sunlight poured through the window, the girl watched the dragon take flight across the room for the first time without falling. Its small wings carried it smoothly from one side to the other, and it even performed a tiny loop in the air. The girl laughed, tears of happiness in her eyes. "You did it," she cried. "You're amazing." The dragon landed softly, looking up at her with wide eyes. There was no fear, no hesitation, only trust and joy. The girl knelt beside it, stroking its small head. "I knew you could do it. I always knew," she whispered. For the first time, the dragon seemed to understand that it was not alone, that it was valued, and that it had someone who believed in it completely. By the end of the week, their routine had become natural. The dragon followed her around, learning everything she did. It began to anticipate her actions, helping her with small tasks or simply keeping her company. She spoke to it often, sharing her thoughts, hopes, and even her fears. The dragon listened, tilting its head or nudging her gently with its snout, as if to say, "I'm here. I understand." One evening, she reflected on how much had changed since the auction. The little dragon, once rejected, timid, and afraid, had become lively, confident, and responsive. And she, once just a quiet observer, had become a teacher, a friend, and a companion. Together, they had created something new, a bond that was stronger than fear, stronger than judgment, and stronger than appearances. The girl knew this was only the beginning. She could see that the dragon had powers yet to be discovered and abilities yet to be tested. But she also knew that as long as they had each other, they could face anything. For the dragon, the girl had become a world of safety and hope. For the girl, the dragon had become a friend who would never leave her side. As they sat together that night, the dragon resting its head on her lap, the girl whispered softly, "We're going to grow together. You'll learn, you'll become stronger, and we'll show the world that no one should ever judge someone by what they look like." The dragon blinked slowly, a small flame flickering in its chest, as if it understood every word, and in that quiet, ordinary room, the extraordinary journey of the girl and her dragon truly began. A journey that would test them, challenge them, and reveal powers they never imagined. But for now, they simply enjoyed the peace, the trust, and the promise of everything yet to come. The days passed quickly, and the girl realized that the little dragon had grown more confident, but it still had so much to learn. She wanted to help it reach its full potential, not just in strength, but in intelligence, agility, and even trust. She knew the auction hall had called it weak, but she also knew that weak didn't mean useless. It meant the dragon needed care, guidance, and someone who believed in it. And she was determined to be that someone. The girl decided to create a training routine. She cleared a large area in her quarters, moving furniture aside, laying out soft mats and cushions. She built small obstacles, little ramps, stacks of books to jump over, and rings to fly through. She didn't want to push the dragon too hard at first, but she wanted it to learn to move its wings better, to understand its strength, and to trust its own instincts. The first day of training was slow. The dragon flapped its tiny wings nervously, hesitating before attempting the ramps or jumps. Sometimes it fell over, sometimes it backed away. The girl stayed patient, kneeling beside it, encouraging it with her voice. "It's okay," she said softly. "Try again. You can do this. I believe in you." Her words seemed to calm the dragon, even when it stumbled or made mistakes. She began with simple exercises, asking it to hop over small objects or touch certain spots on the floor. At first, the dragon did only what it felt safe doing. But as the girl clapped and cheered for every small success, it began to try harder. By the end of the first week, it could jump over the pillows without hesitation and even flap its wings while moving. The girl laughed and hugged it gently. "You're amazing," she said. "I knew you could do it." As training continued, she noticed something remarkable. The dragon was clever, much more than anyone had realized. It remembered every small detail, every gesture, and every command. When she placed objects in certain spots, it learned to anticipate what she wanted. It even began to imitate small things she did, like tapping her hand to signal it to jump or nudging an object in the direction she pointed. The girl's eyes shone with excitement. "You're learning faster than I imagined," she whispered. "You're incredible." But the training wasn't without challenges. The dragon still had moments of fear. Loud sounds, sudden movements, or shadows could make it panic. Sometimes it refused to fly or jumped back instead of forward. The girl never scolded it. She simply let it rest, spoke gently, and waited for it to try again. She knew that patience was more important than force. She realized that building trust was the most important part of training. It would allow the dragon to believe in itself as much as it believed in her. One afternoon, she introduced fire training. The dragon had a small ability to breathe fire, but it was weak and uncontrolled. She placed a small wooden stick on the floor and asked it to try burning it. The dragon hesitated at first, flicking a tiny spark. Then, encouraged by her soft voice, it tried again. A small flame burst from its mouth, enough to burn the stick. The dragon looked at her, eyes wide with pride and surprise. "Yes," she cheered. "See? You're discovering your power." The dragon's tail flicked happily, and for the first time, it seemed proud of itself. Not every day was successful. Some days, the dragon refused to move or seemed nervous. The girl would sit quietly beside it, stroking its scales, whispering calm words. Sometimes she would play little games, rolling a small ball across the floor or hiding tiny treats for it to find. These moments were as important as flying or jumping exercises. They taught the dragon to use its mind, not just its body. The girl also discovered that the dragon had hidden strengths she hadn't noticed at first. Its senses were sharp. It could hear small sounds from far away, see in dim light, and even sense changes in the room before they happened. She started to use these abilities in training, hiding objects and asking the dragon to find them, or moving silently and seeing if it noticed. Each day, the dragon's confidence grew. It wasn't just learning to fly or breathe fire. It was learning to think, anticipate, and act. One evening, after a long day of training, the dragon tried a new trick on its own. It flapped its wings and lifted into the air without any encouragement, soaring across the room and landing gracefully on the table. The girl clapped and laughed, tears of joy in her eyes. "You did it! You did it all by yourself." The dragon chirped softly, flicking its tail. For the first time, it seemed to understand that it could do more than it had ever imagined. The girl began to experiment more with training. She introduced small puzzles, asking the dragon to push blocks in a certain order or pull strings to reach treats. The dragon sometimes failed, sometimes succeeded, but it never gave up. The girl was amazed at how determined it had become. "You're not weak at all," she whispered one night, stroking its head. "You're just misunderstood. And I'll help you show the world who you really are." As the dragon grew stronger and smarter, they started to form a rhythm. Training sessions became a game, filled with laughter, small victories, and learning. The dragon learned to trust the girl completely, and in return, she learned to understand it. She could sense its moods, predict its movements, and even anticipate its thoughts. Their bond was deepening, stronger than anything either of them had experienced before. But the girl knew that this was only the beginning. The dragon still had untapped potential, abilities that had not yet shown themselves. And she also knew that outside, there were creatures and beings far stronger, faster, and more dangerous than her little dragon. The auction hall had judged it unfairly, but the real world would test it in ways no one could predict. She had to prepare it not just to survive, but to thrive. One morning, she introduced flying practice beyond the room. She opened a small balcony and encouraged the dragon to jump and glide in the fresh air. The wind was strong, and the dragon hesitated at first. But with gentle encouragement, it spread its wings and caught the breeze. It wobbled, struggled, and nearly fell, but then it found its rhythm. The girl's heart raced with excitement as she watched it soar, even if only for a few seconds at first. "Keep going," she called softly. "You can do it. I'm here." The dragon landed safely on the balcony, eyes bright and wings trembling. The girl hugged it gently, whispering words of praise. "Every time you try, you get better. Every mistake teaches you something. That's how you grow." Days turned into weeks, and the little dragon improved with every practice. Its wings became stronger, its fire more controlled, and its mind sharper. The girl was patient, never rushing it, always encouraging and guiding. She realized that strength was not just physical. It was in trust, perseverance, and belief. And in that, the dragon had already become extraordinary. As night fell, they would sit together on the balcony, watching the stars appear one by one. The dragon curled up beside her, resting its head on her lap. The girl stroked its scales and whispered softly, "You're amazing. I knew you were special the moment I saw you." The dragon blinked slowly, its chest glowing faintly with warmth. It didn't need to speak. They both knew they had formed a bond stronger than fear, doubt, or weakness, even though the world outside would continue to judge and test them. The girl knew that with patience, care, and trust, the little dragon could achieve things no one had thought possible. They had started with nothing but hope, and already they were creating something extraordinary together. The training had just begun, but the journey was becoming more exciting with every passing day. And in the quiet of their room, with the soft glow of moonlight reflecting on its scales, the dragon finally understood something it had never known before. It wasn't weak, it was chosen. And with the girl by its side, it could become anything. The days of training passed quietly, but the girl knew that something extraordinary was waiting to happen. The little dragon had grown stronger, faster, and smarter, yet there was a feeling in the air, almost like a secret energy that neither of them fully understood. The girl often watched it quietly, noticing subtle glows in its scales or the way its eyes seemed to shine brighter when it concentrated. She had a sense that the dragon was holding something back, a hidden ability that had yet to reveal itself. One morning, she decided to test the dragon in a way they hadn't tried before. She led it to a large open space outside the city, a quiet field surrounded by tall trees. The sunlight streamed through the leaves, casting patterns on the ground. The air was fresh and filled with soft sounds, birds chirping, leaves rustling, and the faint hum of distant creatures. The girl placed a small pile of stones in the center and encouraged the dragon to move them using its strength, speed, or even its fire. At first, the dragon hesitated. It had moved objects before, but never anything heavier or unusual. It sniffed the stones, flicked its tail, and looked up at the girl with uncertainty. "It's okay," she said gently. "You can do it. Just try. I'm right here." Her voice was calm, steady, full of confidence in its potential. The dragon flapped its wings nervously and nudged the stones with its snout, but they didn't move. It tried again, breathing a small flame, and a few stones rolled slightly. The girl clapped softly. "That's it. Keep going. You're doing amazing." Then something unexpected happened. As the dragon concentrated, a faint blue glow began to spread across its scales. Its eyes shone brighter, and its small body trembled not from fear, but from energy. The stones it had been struggling with suddenly lifted slightly into the air, hovering as if weightless. The dragon blinked, surprised, and then looked at the girl. She gasped softly, her eyes wide. You did that? You made them float?" The dragon's tail flicked rapidly, and more energy seemed to flow through it. The stones lifted higher, spinning slowly in the sunlight. The girl watched in awe as the dragon's power revealed itself. It wasn't just cleverness or physical strength, it was something unique, something no one at the auction had seen or even imagined. The little dragon had hidden abilities that were extraordinary, and they were just beginning to surface. For the next several hours, the girl encouraged the dragon to experiment with its newfound power. At first, it lifted small stones, then bigger ones. It could push and pull objects with its mind, moving them carefully or quickly, depending on its focus. Sometimes the stones would tumble and crash, but the girl never scolded it. She simply smiled and guided it gently. "You're learning," she said. "Every mistake teaches you. Keep going. I know you can do more." The dragon began to understand the connection between its thoughts, its energy, and the objects it moved. It learned to control the force better, making the stones float smoothly or gently spin in the air. The girl was amazed at how intelligent and focused it was. She realized that the auction had been wrong. The dragon was never weak. It had simply been misunderstood and underestimated. As the days went by, the dragon's powers grew. It could now lift multiple objects at once, even creating small patterns in the air with stones, sticks, and other items. The girl began to introduce new exercises, asking the dragon to use its abilities in creative ways, moving objects to form shapes, catching floating balls, or even nudging logs to build small structures. Each time, the dragon tried its best, and each time it improved. One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky in shades of orange and pink, the dragon tried something different. It focused on a small patch of water in a nearby stream. The water rippled slightly, then lifted gently into the air, forming shapes that looked like miniature waves frozen in time. The girl's eyes filled with tears of awe. "You're amazing," she whispered. "I knew you had something special. Look at what you can do." The dragon chirped softly, almost proudly, and nudged the floating water with its snout. The water moved smoothly, flowing in patterns the girl had never imagined. She realized that the dragon's abilities were not just about strength or destruction. They were about creativity, intelligence, and control. It could shape, move, and influence the world around it in ways no one had ever seen before. That night, the girl and the dragon sat by the stream, watching the stars reflect in the water. The dragon curled up beside her, its small body glowing faintly with residual energy. The girl stroked its scales gently, feeling the warmth and power within it. "You've grown so much," she said softly. "No one at the auction could have imagined what you're capable of. But I knew, from the very beginning." She thought back to the day she had first seen it, scrawny, timid, and dismissed by everyone else. She realized that the dragon had never been weak. Its strength had always been there, hidden beneath fear and doubt, waiting for someone to believe in it. And she had been that someone. The dragon had trusted her, and in return, it had revealed its true potential. The next morning, she decided to test the dragon's powers in a slightly different way. She placed several objects around the open field stones, logs, even a small metal bucket, and asked the dragon to move them in sequence. At first, it struggled to keep them all under control, and the objects tumbled and clattered. But as the girl encouraged it, the dragon focused harder. Slowly, it lifted one object, then another, moving them with precision and care. By the end, all the objects were neatly arranged in a line, hovering slightly above the ground. The girl clapped and laughed, full of pride and excitement. "Look at you. You're incredible. Do you see what you can do when you believe in yourself?" The dragon chirped, its tail flicking with happiness. It seemed to understand her words, as if it knew she had been right all along, that it was not weak, but it had power beyond what anyone could see, and that it could accomplish amazing things. As the day went on, the girl introduced more challenges, moving objects over longer distances, shaping them into patterns, and even creating small floating platforms the dragon could land on. Each task required focus, control, and trust. The dragon began to thrive, learning faster than ever before. Its scales glowed more often, its wings moved with confidence, and its small body radiated a quiet strength that was impossible to ignore. By the evening, the girl realized something important. The dragon's abilities weren't just about moving objects or controlling energy. They were about understanding the world, observing carefully, and reacting thoughtfully. Its intelligence and creativity were just as important as its strength. And with her guidance, it had grown into a creature that was not only powerful but wise. That night, as they returned to their small quarters, the dragon curled up beside her again. The girl stroked its head and whispered softly, "You've shown me so much today. I knew there was more to you than anyone else could see. You're not just strong, you're extraordinary. And we're going to keep growing together." The dragon closed its eyes, resting against her, its body still glowing faintly with energy. It had discovered something it had never known before: its true potential, its hidden power, and the fact that someone believed in it completely. And in that moment, both the girl and the dragon understood something very important. Their journey had only just begun, and together there was nothing they couldn't face. Word of the little dragon's unusual abilities began to spread. At first, it was just whispers among the neighbors and creatures who had seen it flying or lifting objects with its mind. But soon, the news reached the alien nobles who had once laughed at the auction. They had dismissed the dragon as weak, pathetic, and worthless. But now rumors suggested that it had powers no one could have imagined. They were curious, skeptical, and for some, a little afraid. The girl, however, did not care about the opinions of the auction nobles. She knew the dragon's true value. What mattered to her was trust, friendship, and the bond they shared. But she also realized that it would soon be impossible to stay hidden. The dragon was growing, learning, and practicing every day. Its strength, intelligence, and abilities were becoming too noticeable to ignore. One bright morning, the girl decided it was time for a public demonstration. She led the dragon to the large training field outside the city where they had practiced before. This time, she arranged it carefully: platforms, obstacles, and small objects designed to show the dragon's full range of abilities. She wanted the demonstration to be controlled, safe, and impressive. But she also wanted it to show the dragon's cleverness, not just its strength. As the dragon prepared, it flapped its wings confidently, its small body glowing faintly with energy. The girl knelt beside it, whispering encouragement. "You know what to do. I'm right here. Show them who you really are." The dragon chirped softly, as if it understood. It had learned to trust her guidance completely, and it was ready to perform. News of the demonstration spread quickly. Aliens who had once mocked the dragon at the auction gathered, curious to see what all the talk was about. They arrived in small groups, whispering and laughing nervously. "It's the same weak creature from the auction," one said. "How could it possibly have any abilities?" Another added, "Perhaps the human has been exaggerating." "We'll see soon enough." The girl noticed them, but she did not let it bother her. She knew that the dragon's abilities were not meant to impress anyone. It was about showing its growth, intelligence, and potential. She stepped back, allowing the dragon to take the lead. First, the dragon began with simple tasks, lifting small objects, moving them across platforms, and arranging them in patterns. The crowd watched, murmuring in surprise. They had expected weak movements, clumsy attempts, or failure, but the dragon executed each task perfectly, with precision and control. Its small body moved with agility and confidence, and its eyes shone with intelligence. Then, the girl asked the dragon to perform more challenging exercises. It was time to demonstrate its powers more clearly. She pointed to a small stack of stones and instructed the dragon to lift them all at once. At first, the dragon hesitated, then focused. A faint blue glow spread across its scales, and with a flick of its snout and a graceful movement of its tail, the stones floated into the air, forming a neat, balanced tower. The crowd gasped. The girl clapped softly, encouraging the dragon. "You can do more," she whispered. The dragon's confidence grew. Next, it created patterns with floating objects, lifting balls, logs, and even small containers into the air and moving them in coordinated arcs. The movement was fluid, almost like a dance. Aliens who had once laughed were now watching in silence, their expressions a mix of disbelief and admiration. Then, for the grand finale, the girl asked the dragon to fly and use its fire abilities creatively. The dragon took a deep breath, flapping its wings with precision, rising high into the air. It performed loops, glides, and sharp turns, each movement controlled and graceful. At the same time, it breathed small bursts of fire, creating shapes and patterns in the air. The crowd was mesmerized. No one could believe that the same creature they had called weak at the auction could move with such skill, intelligence, and beauty. One of the nobles, who had scoffed at the dragon weeks before, stepped forward, his eyes wide. "How is this possible?" he whispered to his companion. "We rejected it. We judged it wrongly." Another noble added, "It is not just strong, it is clever, precise, and extraordinary." The whispers grew louder as more aliens realized the truth. They had been wrong. The dragon was not weak. It had been underestimated. The girl watched quietly, smiling softly. She did not boast or demand recognition. She knew the dragon's power was more than physical. It was in the bond they shared, the trust they had built, and the patience she had shown. The dragon had not only learned skills, but had learned to believe in itself, guided by her care and encouragement. After the demonstration, the crowd approached cautiously. Some bowed in respect, others stared in awe. One of the nobles spoke carefully. "We misjudged this dragon. We did not see its true abilities, or the guidance it had." The girl nodded, understanding their words, but not needing their approval. The dragon chirped softly, its tail flicking with pride. It had proven itself, not for the nobles, but for the girl and for itself. The girl noticed that the dragon's confidence had changed. It no longer hesitated when lifting objects or flying through the air. Its small wings carried it with ease, and its fire was controlled and precise. It had learned to think, plan, and execute, and it had done so with intelligence that no one had expected. In the following days, the dragon continued to practice, but now with a new level of confidence. The girl introduced more complex exercises, lifting multiple objects at once, creating more intricate patterns, and even moving objects across longer distances. The dragon thrived under the challenge, learning to coordinate its mind, body, and powers in ways it never could have imagined before. The girl often sat nearby, offering guidance and encouragement. "Remember, every mistake is a lesson," she said one afternoon. "Every success shows what you're capable of. Keep trying, and you'll be unstoppable." The dragon listened carefully, tilting its head or nudging her hand as if to say it understood. Their bond had grown stronger than ever, and the dragon's abilities were now matched by its trust in her. Even the nobles who had once rejected the dragon could no longer ignore it. They began to treat it with respect, realizing that power was not always obvious at first glance. They saw that strength was not only in size or aggression, but also in intelligence, creativity, and the ability to work with someone who believed in you. The dragon had shown them all this, quietly, patiently, and brilliantly. By the end of the week, the girl and the dragon had become local legends. Aliens from other areas came to see the dragon, not to buy it, but to witness its abilities and the incredible bond it shared with the girl. The little dragon, once rejected and dismissed, had become a symbol of underestimated potential and the power of patience, trust, and care. At night, after long days of practice and public demonstrations, the dragon would curl up beside the girl, its small body glowing faintly with residual energy. She would stroke its scales gently and whisper, "You've proven yourself, not to them, but to yourself. And together, we're unstoppable." The dragon chirped softly in response, as if to say, "I know, and I trust you." The girl realized that the journey was far from over. The world was still full of challenges, and there were more adventures waiting beyond the city. But now, she knew that they could face anything together. The dragon was no longer weak, and she was no longer unsure of her choices. They had grown stronger, braver, and more capable with every passing day. And in that moment, as they looked out over the city lights, the girl and the dragon understood something very important. Their bond was their true strength. No one could take that away, and no one could underestimate them again. Together, they had proven that even the weakest, when believed in and guided with care, could become extraordinary. The days after the public demonstration were filled with a new kind of excitement. The dragon and the girl had proven themselves to the aliens who had once mocked them, but there was still more to do. Word of their abilities had spread beyond the city, and beings from far and near wanted to see the dragon, to understand its strength, and perhaps to learn from it. The girl knew that the journey wasn't just about showing power. It was about proving that kindness, patience, and trust could achieve what raw strength alone could not. The girl spent the morning preparing for the day. She laid out obstacles and challenges in the open field, arranging logs, stones, and small platforms. She placed objects in patterns to test the dragon's intelligence and precision. Today, she wanted to show more than strength. She wanted to show teamwork, creativity, and the deep bond they shared. The dragon watched her carefully, understanding her intention. Its small wings twitched in anticipation, its eyes bright and eager. When the visitors began to arrive, the girl noticed the same skeptical looks she had seen at the auction. The wealthy aliens whispered, glancing at the little dragon as if expecting it to fail. But the girl ignored them. She knelt beside the dragon, whispering softly, "We know who you are. Just trust me. Show them what we can do together." The dragon chirped in response, flicking its tail. It had learned to trust her completely, and that trust gave it confidence. The demonstration began with simple exercises. The dragon lifted objects, arranged them, and moved them with skill and precision. But this time, the girl added more complexity. She called for objects to be moved in a specific sequence, requiring the dragon to think, plan, and execute carefully. The little dragon paused, focused, and then began its task. One by one, it moved the items, floating them gently, placing them perfectly, and even adjusting their positions when they wobbled. The visitors murmured in surprise, watching as the once dismissed creature performed flawlessly. Then the girl instructed the dragon to fly. It rose into the air with confidence, its wings carrying it smoothly, effortlessly. She asked it to perform maneuvers around the obstacles she had set. The dragon looped, weaved, and glided, its small body moving with grace and precision. As it flew, it breathed controlled bursts of fire, lighting up the air in gentle arcs. The visitors gasped and leaned forward, eyes wide with amazement. The dragon, once called weak and useless, was now performing with intelligence, creativity, and elegance. After the flight, the girl asked the dragon to demonstrate its telekinetic abilities. The dragon focused, and objects lifted into the air, floating and spinning as if dancing. It moved them into patterns, then created floating platforms for itself, hopping from one to the next with perfect balance. The visitors were speechless. They had never seen a creature move with such control, precision, and intelligence. Some whispered to each other, admitting that they had been completely wrong about the dragon. One of the nobles who had mocked the dragon at the auction stepped forward cautiously. "We misjudged it," he said softly. "It is extraordinary. And the human, you guided it to this?" The girl nodded quietly. "Yes, I believed in it, and it trusted me. That is all it needed to grow." The noble looked thoughtful, realizing that the bond between the girl and the dragon was the true source of its strength. The girl then asked the dragon to perform a final challenge. She pointed to a small hill nearby and asked it to lift objects, fly to the top, and arrange them in a precise pattern. The dragon hesitated for only a moment, then focused. Its body glowed faintly as it lifted rocks, logs, and small items with ease. It flew smoothly, landing on the hilltop and arranging the objects exactly as the girl had instructed. The crowd erupted in applause, some even bowing in respect. The dragon chirped proudly, its tail flicking happily. It had accomplished something that no one thought possible. After the demonstration, the girl knelt beside the dragon, brushing its small head with her hand. "You've done more than I ever imagined," she whispered. "Not just for them, but for yourself. You're not weak, and you never were. You're extraordinary." The dragon chirped softly in response, its eyes glowing with happiness and trust. It had discovered its true potential, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. Guided by the girl's care, the visitors approached, asking questions and offering praise. They wanted to learn how the dragon had grown so quickly, how it could lift and control objects, and how it had become so intelligent. The girl explained patiently, describing the training, the patience, and the trust they had built together. She showed them that power was not just about strength or size, but about understanding, cooperation, and belief in one another. In the days that followed, the girl and the dragon became symbols of hope and inspiration. Other humans and creatures came to see them, curious to witness the bond between the two and the dragon's incredible abilities. They offered lessons and demonstrations, but the girl always emphasized patience, trust, and understanding. She taught that even those considered weak could achieve greatness with the right guidance and belief. The dragon thrived under the new attention. It performed with confidence, creativity, and intelligence, always listening to the girl's guidance. Its wings were strong, its fire precise, and its telekinetic abilities remarkable. The girl continued to challenge it, introducing new exercises and tasks, helping it grow further. Each day, the bond between them strengthened, creating a partnership that was unbreakable. One evening, As the sun set over the city, the girl and the dragon sat together on a hill, looking at the glowing horizon. The dragon rested its head on her lap, its small body radiating warmth and energy. "We've come so far," the girl whispered. "From the day they rejected you at the auction to now. Look at what you've become. You're not just strong. You're clever, brave, and amazing." The dragon chirped softly, as if agreeing, and nudged her hand gently. The girl thought about the journey they had shared. From the moment she first saw the little trembling dragon, she had believed in it. She had guided it patiently, trusted it, and encouraged it. And in return, the dragon had learned to trust her, grow, and reveal powers that no one else had ever imagined. Together, they had transformed what was once called weakness into extraordinary strength. The city below sparkled with lights, and the girl realized that the dragon's journey was far from over. There were new challenges ahead, new adventures to embark upon, and more beings to meet. But she knew that as long as they had each other, they could face anything. The bond they shared was their true strength, and it would carry them through every obstacle. As the night deepened, the girl and the dragon returned to their quarters. The dragon curled up beside her, glowing faintly with energy and warmth. The girl stroked its scales, whispering softly, "You've shown them all what you are capable of. But more importantly, you've shown yourself. And that is what matters most." The dragon chirped softly, closing its eyes, content and proud. In the days that followed, they continued to train, explore, and grow. The girl introduced new challenges, and the dragon met them all with confidence and intelligence. Together, they discovered new abilities, experimented with flight patterns, and refined the dragon's fire and telekinetic powers. Each success was celebrated quietly, with laughter, gentle words, and the shared joy of achievement. The girl knew that the world would continue to judge, test, and challenge them. But she also knew that the little dragon, once rejected and dismissed, had become something extraordinary. It had learned to trust, to grow, and to believe in itself. And she had learned that patience, kindness, and belief in others could transform even the weakest into the strongest. Their journey had begun with a small act of faith, a human girl choosing a weak, trembling dragon at an auction. And now it had grown into a story of hope, trust, and extraordinary strength. Together, they had created something beautiful, a partnership that could face anything. And together, they would continue to grow, explore, and inspire, showing the world that greatness is not always obvious, but it can always be nurtured with care and belief. That night, as the stars twinkled above, the girl whispered softly to the dragon, "This is only the beginning. We've shown them what we can do, but there's so much more ahead. We'll keep growing, learning, and exploring together. No one can take this from us. And I promise, I'll always believe in you." The dragon rested its head on her lap, a soft glow from its scales illuminating the room. It had learned its true strength, and it had learned to trust completely. Together, they had turned rejection into triumph, weakness into extraordinary power, and doubt into unwavering belief. And as they drifted into sleep, side by side, both knew that whatever challenges the future held, they would face them together, stronger than ever before.